35 years ago, I sat in this classroom learning about my country, Australia. I had my first set of colour pencils and I spent my time drawing sheaves of wheat and bales of wool. They were fun days. I enjoyed them very much and I remember them very fondly. The most vivid memories I've got were the days that the dusk came. The sky would turn brown and the light would become an eerie yellow. The windows would rattle, shake. We would sit in here with a single light on trying to work. And the headmaster would come in and say, I think we'll have to cancel school today. You'll have to go home early. Is there anyone who won't have a parent at home? And we would go off holding hands, little groups of 2 or 3, off into the eerie gloom. Very vivid memories. The difference between then and now is that when I was a schoolboy, I wondered what caused the dust storms. Today, I know.
That experience of my childhood in Renmark, South Australia, aroused my curiosity. I wanted to know more about my country, and what I know today is that dust storms aren't natural features at all. They're caused by us. Caused by us because we've never really understood Australia. For me, the best place to begin to understand this country is out here, in the inland, on one of our ancient blue bush plains. They've been like this for at least 20,000 years, and I suppose it's the timelessness of this place that affects me most. Over the years, my work with CSIRO has brought me out here many times. I come here to measure the changes in plant cover from season to season. I think the reason I like coming out here so much is the feeling of space. You realise how vast and empty this country is, why it's taken so long to find out about our land. The early explorers and drovers wandered all over it, but they only saw a small part, and of course their reports took a long time to get back. But that's all changed. Above my head circle satellites. One in particular, Landsat 4, at about 1,000 kilometres up, sends back information about this country every 18 days. Even though I must come out here and make scientific measurements, I can get a better and more accurate view of this land in an office in a city. These colours aren't natural. They can be changed to show different things. But what that satellite in space can do is give exact detail of the land and its features that a human eye can never see. One thing that is immediately obvious is where most of us live. We're the greatest city dwellers on Earth. For every 10 Australians, 8 of them live in the cities. But how well we live is determined by what happens on the land that is far away from our cities. This is a satellite image of Australia taken on the 12th of April, 1982. It shows exactly what Australia looked like on that day. and obviously most of it is dry. For the first time, we can see the condition of the whole country at a glance. But more importantly, how quickly it can change. 58 days later, it looked like this. This was the beginning of the worst drought we have ever known. To be able to see these changes on this scale, and we can do it now week by week, is tremendously exciting. The early explorers could never have imagined a view of Australia like this. In fact, just 20 years ago, it was impossible. But the excitement I first felt when I saw these images has given way to feelings of apprehension and concern. There are so many things about Australia that we've all accepted as fact, which are simply not true. A satellite cannot be romantic about this country, as most of us are. It just sends down objective information, the real truth about our land and what's happening to it. Landsat can do a great many things. One of the things it's done for me, and I've been working with Landsat for about 11 years, is it's destroyed one of my most cherished myths. I was a post-World War II schoolboy. I was brought up with the belief that Australia was going to be the food bowl of the world and that we could support an unlimited population. That was my belief, and Landsat has shown me otherwise. It's a myth. It's not only an inappropriate myth, it's downright dangerous. It is dangerous to believe Australia has no limits, and it's madness to assume we can have an ever-increasing population. Our soils are poor. We've used them skillfully to clothe and feed us, and we've done it well to date. And because of that, we give them so little thought. Our dreams for the future are based on minerals. And even though we've got a lot of minerals, when we mine them, when we dig them up, they're gone, and gone for good. We can't replace them. And we're left with this. This, with care and understanding, will sustain us and sustain us forever. But what staggers me and what frightens me is how small is the area of land, of good land, we have to support us. There's no denying that Australia is big, but how good is it? Almost all of this area is desert. It's so dry and barren or hostile that European man has never tried to settle here, and never will. This area is either semi-desert, or the soils are so poor, if you try to plough it to grow crops, you'll destroy it. Mostly mountain country, too steep and rocky, and not suitable for ploughing. It's also the source of our water, parks, and recreational wilderness, and should be left alone. What's left is about 10% of Australia. Our heartland, our best land. 10% of Australia to support us all. It's when you realise how little good land there is that you begin to look at it with different eyes. When you travel through the countryside, you become much more sensitive to the condition of the land and to the way it's being treated. This isn't a natural watercourse. It's something we created. We turned a gentle stream into a scar.
And yet this is the Heartlands, that 10% of Australia we can plough and crop, our most valuable and productive land. And yet we let it wash away, we let it blow away, or we cover it with concrete and houses. We, the city people, we've forgotten how important these lands are. Not only do they feed and clothe us, but they provide the greatest share of our export income. And that wealth, that income, that contributes to our standard of living. That's the money we use to buy our consumer electronics, our automobiles, and most importantly, our defence hardware. Australia as we know it cannot exist without these lands. We must do everything we can to preserve them.
Already, from that 10% of Australia, a quarter of it has been lost forever. An area of land the size of Victoria has been destroyed, washed down a gully and out to sea, or blown away. I think that loss began to have more significance for me 14 years ago, when my first son was born. It's when you're concerned about the future for others that you can't help wondering what sort of world they'll be left with. The land that is gone is an enormous loss, but what really chills me about the future for our children is that the destruction is still going on. Why is it happening? Perhaps part of the answer is where my own family started on the land. My family were among the early settlers, pioneers in a new Australia, and they came to this area, not far from Renmark in South Australia.
This is what the countryside looked like when my grandparents came here to settle. They, along with many others, came here to farm, to earn a living, to start a new life. The only experience they had was of Europe. This land was deceptive. They came and they ploughed the land with a joy that only farmers know. And when it rained and their crops grew, they prospered and they gave thanks. But droughts were inevitable. Their crops failed, so they tightened their belts, they ploughed the land again, and they waited. This isn't Europe. And these aren't European soils. These thin, poor soils that had never known a plough were left bare and exposed under the Australian sun. The inevitable result was disaster. For my grandparents, whose dreams turned to dust, and for the land.
I don't think we've ever really understood Australia. Our land is one of the oldest continents on Earth. It's been lying, exposed, baking in the sun for millions of years. The soils are tired and thin, easily destroyed if pushed too hard. Our forefathers came from countries where the soils were rich and deep, where it rained every year. In Australia, it doesn't. We've never been prepared to accept these limitations, to understand how fragile this land is.
Hey, dog.
Richard Martin lives on 18,000 hectares. 100 years ago, the government sent 13 families to live here. Settlers filled with hope in a new land. They all failed. Now, Richard lives alone.
When the early settlers came into this country, they weren't aware of the limitations, and they saw this country in a plentiful season and obviously thought, well, this should be good farming country, and within 2 generations they were gone and there was one family left, and that's my family. My grandfather, shortly after the war, said, well, I've got to leave this country in a better state, what he found it. And he started this slow program of recovering this country and putting it back into the state which those early settlers saw it.
In spite of all the work Richard's family has done, 40 years of effort, the results of that early misunderstanding are still visible. This part of Australia is too poor to plough. Crops should never have been grown. That's easy to see, because the areas that were left just to graze a few sheep are still good. The stupidity of it all is that only a few kilometres away, the tractors are out and they're ploughing the land again. The damage that they'll do in one day will take generations to repair. It's almost as if the lesson learnt here is worthless.
It's going to take a lot of time, a long time. I mean, this is very erratic rainfall country. You can't farm it. You've got it's beautiful, healthy grazing country, and I'd like to think we could get it back looking like that.
This is where Richard was working. The satellite clearly shows the difference between land that was damaged all those years ago, the pink areas, and the country still in good condition, the dark patches. When you look across the country, the amount of land that's still good is very small. But the worst thing about it is that every time I get a new image, and they're coming in all the time, the area of good land is even smaller. It's frightening because you really do wonder what the cost will be, what the future for all of us will be like.
Good morning, it's 10 past 8 on Sunshine Radio in Australia's #1 city. Today's weather, chilly but fine, with an expected maximum of 16 degrees. And at the moment, the news update.
future may not be very different from this. It's not only the discomfort of sand drifts and dust storms. That's already happening. The real effect will be a drop in our standard of living, as more and more of our good land simply blows away. There's so little good soil in Australia. How do you measure the cost when it blows away? In millions of dollars of lost production? In the number of people you can no longer feed? The only thing you can say is that when it goes, it's gone forever. It doesn't come back.
Straight. Further back then was our Baron, who's over on the inside. The others I can't really pick up down the back, with about 900 metres to go. And I'd say those people listening in the Western District, in the Mallee area, if you're looking for Dimboola, it could be here. Could have landed right across Melbourne as they come up with about 800 metres to go. Vane Fox, Fiery Fiend...
In one storm a few years ago, our topsoil blew to New Zealand and turned their snowfields red. Like this storm in Melbourne, the news reports blamed it on the drought. When I was a kid in Renmark, I might have believed that, but not now. There's really no reason to have dust storms in Australia. We know what causes them. All the lessons of the past are here to see. The country is littered with them. The early settlers only acted on the little knowledge they had. You can forgive their mistakes. But to continue to make those mistakes is unforgivable.
This is an important place in our history. It's part of a chapter when over-optimistic governments encourage people to settle on the land and grow crops where crops should never have been grown. This house was built by people that were hopeful for the future. And it wasn't long before they experienced bitter defeat. They've gone, and we've forgotten the lesson from that history. We've forgotten, but the land never forgets. We have left scars, but we have learned. We know how to manage this country now, to use it and not destroy it. But that knowledge is not always used, and it's not always enforced. The well-being of this very thin layer is not just the concern of the few people that live here. It's the concern for all Australians, no matter where we live or what we do. This topsoil is all we've got to sustain our dreams. This topsoil is linked to our future. If, through indifference and lack of concern, we allow that to be lost, then our society will be lost also. That's the choice we have.